course they rang. Oh, Chewy. No. Invite you. Okay. On. No. More. Participant. Two. No. I'm not gonna turn off. Disable.
Re-enable.
Disable. Disable.
Re-enable the disablement. Are you adjusting the Pan-Galactic Gargle Blasters?
That was last week, but the heirloom island flange was stuck, so we had to send it back to Boston Brooks, where they did the original fabrication. So I don't know what's going to happen now.
Yeah, understandably.
He might just be stuck in orbit for the next like 3 weeks. Not sure. Jay's like, I got nothing for you.
I was just thinking like, oh, I should move this outside so I can have a cigar as well, because I was like getting ready. I knew Mateus has always got something going on. I figured I'd join him today.
Yeah, it makes everything so much better.
Yeah,
I know it's a simple pleasure.
Dre, you're not in your normal like dramatically lit space.
No, I'm up on an island somewhere.
In Ontario?
Yeah, Northern Ontario, Georgian Bay.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, it's super nice. Had an awesome storm last night, and Starlink went down for an hour, so I was like, oh, time to read a book.
Yeah, what's up with the Starlink outage?
No, it lasted like 45 minutes, and it was back up again. No idea. Maybe there was, intergalactic tentacle from another galaxy, touched one of the satellites, or maybe it was one of those near Earth potential collisions that warped the gravitational telemetry. Who knows? Who knows?
Too many people streaming South Park at the same time.
Actually, I did that last night when Starlink came back.
Nice. All right, well, we got 3 presentations, so we should get right to it. Anna, Steve, and Scott. I think Steve said he was going to come late, so we'll start with Anna. And
all on the hot.
Yeah, give us what you got.
It's very casual. Hi, everyone. I'm Anna, a recovering academic who is also a time traveler of sorts. I'm a performance artist underneath all of the things that I do. And part of the recovery from academia has been bringing the performance art into relationship with the types of transformations I was hoping to get for the students in the classroom. I like to think that I practice social acupuncture, so that a student is basically a needle that I'm sharpening to deploy someplace to do something over time, hopefully something momentous, and that they can connect with other students and I can guide as necessary across time. I noticed after COVID, students were coming back to the classroom so fucking pissed is the best way to say it. Like most of us, actually. We're like, why are we trying to do this again? No, we're done with this part. Before COVID hit, I'd actually noticed, though, a lot of the students were showing up, wondering why they were showing up. If college felt like a thing that wasn't really necessary for them, it wasn't going to get them where they wanted to be, and they were super, super, super irritated. because they didn't have the vocabulary, but mostly they didn't have the body to back up the thoughts that they were trying to have, which meant that they couldn't get the vocabulary and then work with the ideas, and they weren't dreaming. So the dancer performance artist in me went and got certified in this thing called Somatic Activated Healing. I put it together with my consultancy that I was always running in the background, because HBCUs are notorious for underpaying their faculty. So everyone has a side hustle who's a faculty at any HBCU in the United States. So with that, I noticed my clients, I could make them do 21, 34, 54-day sprints to get things finished. But there was always this intense emotional fallout, like crying, screaming sometimes. It wasn't unusual to get cursed out by someone that I was coaching, and then they come back and be like, I'm sorry, I didn't know what to do with that. I understand what you're saying now. Okay, so those all come together. I do the certification, and I rejigger the background consultancy into a full business, leave the gig, and put it together with performance art. So I get you in 21, 34, 54-day sprints, but with this somatic activated healing dance thing in the middle. Part of why I really, really wanted to do it, I started noticing people in my small town where I was living chopping down 300-year-old trees. It made no sense to me. One got cut down on campus, and we were actually told, oh, we'll get a new one. And that's when mayhem broke out on campus. Anyone that knew any juju, because that's the thing in the South, started throwing roots against that president. She was gone within 9 months. She literally got fired on her day off. It was kind of exquisite. However, I began to get really curious about why people were chopping down the trees, why people were so concerned about how their yards looked, because a yard is basically a food desert for birds and other animals, but it is also extra work for the people that own the yards. And it creates all of this drama between neighbors. So people actually end up really disliking each other often because of how the yard is managed. So it's a bit of a displacement that's really wild. So what if the very thing that we're wanting to end all of our being aggravated with each other, the thing that's in the way of us ending our loneliness epidemic, right? The thing that's in the way of us moving back into dream space so that we can dream our way into the future, resides in trees. So I dedicated my business to the trees. So I would set aside money from the tree thing. I'm a sponsor of Mossy Earth. I give money to other things. I was a faculty advisor for Audubon, the first bird watching crew at an HBCU. I ran that for 2 or 3 years. And then I realized the business that is called Joynasium, get your joy back and do your thing. That the telling people at the end, oh yeah, and some of the money that you pay me goes to trees. People would always get very moved. Well, why didn't you tell me that at the beginning? I would have given you more money. So I started flipping it around and doing the things with the tree in the middle. And really, I began to think about, especially here in the South, how canopy is super important because of heat. And also because of the topsoil. Our topsoil is really, we're an ancient beach. It's just red sand under here. And as soon as people chop down these trees, the beach comes back and everything washes away. So what if we save these trees? But then the somatic practitioner in me realized we're not going to save these trees because we've guilted ourselves into thinking that the only way to save the environment is to feel really, really, really guilty about it. No one wants to feel bad. No one wants to feel blamed. So no one does anything. So I am doing this thing now that I call root workers. And I have some questions for you all. I'm going to play the little sizzle reel and then we can talk some more. This is a third draft of the sizzle reel. I would love to pay somebody to do a better job of it, but this is what I have. So can I share direct from here? There we go. Sending you the request. All right. Share sound. go, sharing. Desktop. Share. All right, can you guys see? All right. Oh, I don't want to share it. Okay, so I have to find my screen now. It's playing in the background. There we go. So questions I have for you. You might have seen the little bitty device in there. I've been trying to get a hold of PlantWave to have opportunities for people to listen to plants and trees as part of the process. And someone's mentioned to me that there are a few things on GitHub where you could build your own. I'm trying to make it so that this is easy for people to do on their own. I'm gonna go twerk too. You can twerk in your office. I actually have some some things for you to do. But the tagline, at first I wasn't going to use it, but it's already in there. When you put root workers, you can see twerk already in there, so I just leaned into it. And that is a really important move to use when you're trying to release pent-up emotions, is actually to get your hips doing something. Even if your twerk is like, I don't know what this is, that's okay, as long as you're moving. So our goal is to send 300-year trees. This is a 100-year project to send 300-year trees 100 years into the future. So essentially, I'm trying to stop chopping down trees by turning them into guests at garden parties. Garden parties are huge in the South. So the thing now is to get people to host these things. So far, I've been hosting, and I've got 3 or 4 other people that are interested in doing it, but it is a side project that is quickly making itself the center. So things about tech to be able to listen to the trees, if anyone has leads on that, ideas around if you're not a person that normally dances, what would it take to get you to a root worker garden party, or how would you participate? And anything else that came up that I don't have enough sense to ask a question on, because I always think that the best part is when people ask the questions. So thank you.
Cool. Thanks, Anna. Yeah, go ahead. Who's Marvelous talking machine?
It's Sandro.
who is
I'll
it?
change it. First, thank you, Anna. Do you know Rodney Fredrickson?
I do not.
Oh, okay. You should meet Rodney Fredrickson. I think he's talked about the somatic kind of aspects of what you were discussing. He's on here somewhere, I guess. Rodney Fredrickson is a name you can look up, I guess. Yeah, the spiritual aspect of throwing root, grounding, you know, the ancient tree, ancient symbols, you know, eternal symbols. I get a feel that this is sort of performance art, kind of gathering people to dance around a tree. I mean, just the imagery is so primal. And you know, twerk your way to work, or I forget I don't know how I forgot. It is an unforgettable tagline. I just have a bad memory.
Twerk to do the work.
Yeah. Sounds really good and good. It sounds powerful. Like it sounds like, you know, you're trying to make a spiritual connection through dance, and yeah, I mean, it's wonderful. The only thing I say as an older person, I don't know if I can twerk. I don't know if anyone wants to see me twerk. And targeting the young is probably what you want to do. But you know, the older people have money, and so like this is a very minor kind of comment. I just crossed my mind that you know, the people that can maybe fund this won't twerk. So that's all I'll say. And I think your project is great. Thank you for showing it.
Thank you. I saw another hand.
I was gonna say, I was like, I think everyone can twerk. So we shouldn't be past that. So I was like, beware my office later. The thing that made me connect a bit more to this was like the subverted ways that you could use this, and a good friend of mine, she runs this company called Discover Pebble. She lives for sort of these metaphors and bringing in these analogies of nature into leadership development work in big companies. And she's like, I like, her focus is, I'm not running leadership development or team growth work in unnatural spaces, fluorescent lights, those sort of things. And she's done work with beekeepers, everything like that. And so I'm happy to make that connection. Actually, I was like literally texting her as you went, but I think of not just the garden parties, but people that are looking for different experiences to be able to shake some of their values, because if their values don't change, their beliefs or their actions don't change. And so I think there's an element of skepticism, like, will people dance? But if I've ever seen a bunch of folks kind of frustrated with doing the same thing and hoping for different outcomes, I think that there's some space to use formats like this.
All right, fantastic. Thank you. Yours, Benjamin.
Hey there. So I just wanted to say, I love your ask for feedback about like what would it take to get me to do it, and I am just one of those people. I would like, this is like my idea of like a bad time. Like I would never participate, but I love that you're doing it and finding the community that wants to do this. And like I have a 5-year-old, and like helping him connect with his emotions and detangle his emotions is, you know, it is something that I believe like a lot of people of post-pandemic is like struggling with. Anyway, I wasn't gonna say anything, but then you mentioned that you're trying to build a community and then have other people host these types of events, right? And anyway, so I have a background in games, and anytime anyone is building like a community of communities, where it's like you're building your community, but you're trying to get both participants and event organizers and everything, I'm just gonna put a link to a YouTube video. There's this awesome talk, it's about an hour long, and it's about designing experiences for friendships and like participation. And it really is like an awesome framework for like if you're trying to get people together, and it's like building a system of interactions to like promote that like upward flow and engagement. And it's in the context of like cooperative video games, but it really, I've found it applies to pretty much any time you're trying to build a community, especially a community of communities. So I just wanted to say check it out. I think, it's really hard to get other people to run the type of event that you want to be running yourself.
Right.
And that quality control and making sure that it is, if someone goes to your event versus their event, it's the same kind of experience and all that kind of stuff. So anyway, just a way of like, scaling communities is something that's very difficult.
That's
Anyway,
great.
it's a cool resource.
I actually stumbled into this in a course I was taking led by the Belong Institute because I felt like people who were showing up for Joynasium processes wanted to become community members. And I didn't have one set up for them. So thank you for this, because there's also a big gaming component to it because I'm trying to trick them into starting a movement. so thank you so much. Okay, Mateos.
Thanks for the presentation. I'm not going to speak so much to twerking. I mean, you know your audience better than I do, of course. But I was more, what captured my interest more was when you said, okay, let's imagine these old trees 100 years into the future, right? So then we come down into the storytelling aspect or the imaginative and speculative designs or what have you. And I was, well, first the question, right? So how do you imagine that manifests? How do you make, if this is presented as a garden party, I'm curious, how do you present this as and get people to think about, let's pretend this is 100 years into the future, right? So I'd love to hear more about that. And just as a reference, like 25 years ago, I was starting a homepage where people were supposed to upload their favorite trees and stuff, and then tell them, okay, why do I love this tree, right? Okay, because I met my girlfriend or whatever. But doing that, I found there's a book series called Meeting Remarkable Trees. I think it's British originally, but mostly focused on Europe. But it's a great book because it gives plenty of examples of why people have some affinity to particular trees, which it goes more towards like the great tree idea of treeness rather than trees in general. But it could be a way to like get ideas for storytelling, I guess.
Okay. So think of the garden party as the gateway drug into the community. The community, I have worked out the workbook. There's collateral for what do we like words that we say. There's a specific ritual designed to the actual party. So when people show up, it's not just random, let's have a good time. There's like, you're greeted by fairies who escort you to the back. And then I introduce the tree. It's like, surprise, the tree is the guest of honor. And then we have to ask permission to dance. So there are all of these little things built in to begin to create the conditions for people to recall that tree. That's really great. I'm going to look up that book, The Remarkable Tree of Their Past, and how that tree got them to their present, which was their future at that time. And then they can start to understand how we speculate our way into change. Basically, if we chop down something that is 75 years old right now, that's one less 300-year-old tree for 100 years from now. So then it's brutally clear. But then there's also all of this rhythm and ritual and changing your day even to deal with your tree, especially if you're going to become a host. You have to create a relationship with your tree before you can even host one of these events. So there's steps to the madness.
Okay, no, that makes total sense. I was just going by the sizzled reel, and that just looked like a garden party, right? So, but that might be a good. I mean, again, you know your audience, right? So that might be a good thing by not scaring people away by showing fairies in the video. So, I'm interested. I'd love to read more about it.
Okay, thank you. All right, we got Mark B and then Aaron, and we probably have to wrap up. Yes, Julian?
Yeah. So
There's 10 minutes left.
Okay.
I'll go quick. So is there, I was thinking about all the different aspects that go into it. One, you mentioned about the actually being able to get the sound out of the tree. And then I was thinking there might be room for collaboration with musicians or something like that that could do something. Do you have a group of people that's like, there's the community on the outside, right? Which is the people who attend. Do you have a community on your side who are helping you kind of make this kind of a consistent experience? Like, is there like a catering angle to it? Are you like, what's that infrastructure that allows this to, because some of this thing, especially early on, and I'm feeling really kind of prosaic because we talk to clients about this too, is to get the small bits right and make it in, like, don't worry about scaling early, get the formula right, get the real kind of intensity right, find the minimum, absolute minimum size of your kind of your network on both sides, both in terms of presenting the events and attending the events. And when you really get that happening, then you can start to think about how this might have like a satellite event or something like that. But what do you have in terms of your team that's helping put these events?
Okay, currently I'm doing the catering myself. My husband's traveling. He's a chef. So hopefully he'll come in and do the thing. But I have a formulaic menu. The menu has to be ancestral grains related to whomever is the host. So the idea is that we're constantly ancient to the future in this really subtle way, light fare. All of the components, I have a fairy who's also a costume designer. And so she cosplays as a fairy and she's friggin' awesome. And right now I have a sound bowl person who also she was wanting to do tarot and stuff that felt the bridge too far, and she felt that. So for the next one that we have coming up, we're going to dive back into dealing with the trees. But I have slowly rolled out the formula to them because initially it was just, let's see if I can even play with these people, because I like it when all of the small things are correct, right down to the color in the bathroom, the fruit that's available for the break, when the breaks are, how long the breaks are. But I do feel that missing component of being able to talk to the tree, or talk to the tree severely, because that was a big part of the initial design, was this moment where people would lay down and then listen, not only look at the canopy, but listen to the electromagnetic signals from the tree afterward.
Yeah. So there's a lot going on under the hood. So just in terms of the sizzle reel, you're not going to be able to explain everything. So you have to decide what are the real high points you want to hit, and also what the narrative is. Like right now, it looks a little bit like a deck that you might have time to read, but you really don't want really take people through a really high level narrative and make them curious enough that they'll go in then and understand some more of the details. You don't want to get too detailed in the actual, just because it's so rich. Tell a story, get them hooked, and keep it weird, which I really like.
Yes. Thank you.
I really like what you're doing. Super excited about it. And I posted a link to something that I think, if you haven't seen it, Emergence Magazine. It's a resource that I go to all the time. That is a lot about dancing and trees and about reconnecting to the natural environment. But my partner has a cooking school for kids. It's called Culinary Artistas, culinaryaartistas.com. And a lot of what she does is provides parents a place to send kids to that is healthy, that they learn stuff, that they have fun, and they're out of their hair for a weekend, for a full week. And I was just thinking that, like, it seems like from a commercial perspective, like people would want to send their kids to your twerk tree saving awesomeness for an afternoon, for a day, for a weekend, right? And then the other interesting synergy, and I'd love to somehow connect you with them, is her daughter goes to and is now an instructor at a company called Dance Mission. It's a dance group for only in the Mission in San Francisco, and it's amazing, right? And I think like that they might be interesting to have a quick chat with about what they're doing and how many kids' lives they've impacted. And usually every one of their performance has some connection to the forest and the trees. So somehow I'll connect you to all that amazingness that might be fun. I know that both her daughter and Vanessa would love to chat with you about what they do in the world and how they're trying to make the world a better place.
That's awesome.
Cool.
Thank you.
Great stuff. I'm super excited about it.
Thanks. Okay, Aaron.
How's it going? Thanks for this.
Thank you.
I'm just thinking about what people are saying on here about not twerking. Somebody asked me recently if I like to dance, and I was like, not as much as I would like to dance. I teach skateboarding, and it's sort of a similar thing. It's like people, they want to do it, but they don't necessarily know how to enjoy it. So I shared a link in the chat to this paper on the theory of routine mode choice, which is sort of like a random transportation paper about sort of what people need in order to decide to do something. And the steps are, awareness and availability, then safety and security, then convenience and cost, then enjoyment, and then and I don't know, I think a lot about how in order to really get the full depth of something, you need like repeat exposure to it, right? So I don't know, thinking back to what the earlier contributor said about minimum viable product and just like how can this become ritual for people, especially if like the ritual of going to college isn't it, like how do you need to go, how frequently in order to get all of the little skills and like little insights that come along the way. But anyways, just thought that the steps from that paper might be helpful, and I think it's really great.
Oh, thank you. I actually used it in my speech class for the entire term, one semester. And a lot of students just stopped coming to class. They were like, no, but they were not going to come anyway. But the ones that did all of, like, we would do 20 minutes of this process before we started class, their whole situation changed. And so they'd walk into the room and automatically put their bag down, move the chair back, and start stretching to get ready to do it. So it was really great. I think it took me about 6 weeks, because we were only meeting twice a week, for them to, okay, now this is what I know I need. And the transformations that they had were outrageous. Like from, I don't know what I'm talking about, to a fully memorized 20-minute speech and complete fluidity on the stage.
Yeah.
So it delivers.
Yeah, twice a week makes a lot of sense, right? I think like in order to really learn something, you need repeat exposure to it. And I think, at once a week, you're sort of just doing maintenance.
Right.
But
Right.
at twice a week, you can like, start to make some progress. 3 times a week is even, you can make more accelerated progress. But yeah, I just wonder about, what sort of things can people take away from an experience like, hey, if you do this every week, every 2 day or every twice a week or something like that, and how those might like be seeds for finding the people who want to help you to do this more in the future. The people who like those little rituals really resonate with, you kind of trace their way back to you.
Okay. Thank you for that.
Yeah.
Matthias is back.
Matthias is back. So I was thinking about the gizmo. You were, that's what one of your questions, right? I would work the other way, from the other direction. So what do you want the takeaway for people to be, rather than focus on a technical solution from the beginning, right? So if hypothetically, if it is an emotional connection to a particular tree, for example, I think using something that senses electromagnetic fields and translates into sound, that's going to be a bit arbitrary and might as well work with a water heater, right? So if is there something else which is particular to the tree that might engender the emotional response that you're looking for? I'm thinking someone mentioned it in chat, right? So looking at like other animals that make the house, make the tree their home. So with enhancing the sound, natural sounds, putting like contact microphones on the tree, might that be something? Can we actually hear it gurgle water up out from the ground? Something which particular to the site or the tree, rather than focusing on something that requires some sort of arbitration on your part or the technician's part to make noise.
Okay, that is helpful, because it has been feeling like a bizarre mountain to climb. But I really did want, because ultimately the goal was to be able to mix that sound at the DJ booth so that the DJ can mix in with that noise that's reporting, mix in with that, and the last dance is then with, like, literally with the tree versus
Mhm.
on top of the tree's nervous system. When we're, like, basically dancing on the tree, you're dancing on top of it.
Yeah.
But yeah, I like the contact mic idea.
Yeah, but I mean that makes sense. But because I think as long as people know what that the original sound actually somehow relates to the actual tree, and it couldn't have been created by another process, right?
Yeah, often the other processes, they're strange. The pitches that they select, or I'm like, why did you pick that to be the sound? Because you did pick that. Or have you seen that there is an AI that's been developed. It's contained. They sit in front of the tree and then they hook it up to the tree, and the tree talks with people. It's in Ireland, but it's really so. But didn't you script that? And why did you script it that way?
Yeah. So I mean, if you can let people, I think people would buy the end product even if it's really
Mhm.
arbitrated somehow, if they can hear the original product as well, right? So we have a very faint sound from the ants crawling, and we can hear the water being sucked up, but we're translating it into this beat, which is danceable somehow, or
Mhm.
but as long as people get that connection, that's fine. I remember talking to some guy who wanted to do a how to visualize mountains as sound, right? And the problem we came down to was sort of similar. So how it's going to be arbitrary. I mean,
Mhm.
what decides whether or not it's a high tone, if it's a high mountain or not, right? It's you making the decision.
Mhm.
So as long as you can make the process clear, I think that might actually bring an actual connection rather than just making something that's fun to listen to, I guess.
Okay.
That's that was great. Thank you, Anna.
Thank you.
And thanks for all the
Thank you, everybody.
yeah, good stuff, you guys. Okay, so next is I think Steve, you signed up, didn't you? You there?
Did, yeah. I did sign up.
Yeah, okay. Yeah, you're next.
I'm next. I'm gonna go third, but there's no third. Okay, let me just pull up my some visuals. Uh, share. Never mind. Okay, you guys are. I'm just gonna hide my controls. Okay, good. All right, everybody can see see my screen coming up. Okay, yeah, I got thumbs up. Okay, so I got my Imagine Harder pin on today. I have I should introduce myself just quickly. I just finished a Doctor of Design where I focused on the idea of using fiction as a design tool, effectively. Not necessarily new in itself, but just it was partly my own discovery, and it was a Doctor of Design. So I'm trying to find a new way of practicing design. Anyway, long story short, found the New Future Lab. I think 2022 was 2023, somewhere around there. And Jillian's been a big help through all this. One of the concepts that came out of the work was the idea of taking the TBD catalog, that's a TBD catalog idea that has been put out in the past through the lab. But part of my thesis was to sort of focus in my practice on designing for a particular group of people, a market segment. Speaking, I'm from a startup investing background, so as well as mechanical engineer and designer. So the what I wanted to do was aim this idea at something specifically, and what came out of the work and writing the thesis and writing a story in the middle of all that. So part of the center of my thesis is a little little book, a little story of uh, of we call a novella, basically in length story, but I decided to illustrate it as I went. I'll show you some of the illustrations to take the idea of combining the design fictions and extracting as I'm writing and sort of working out scenarios in my mind, figuring out what might come out of that. And so the idea I had was the side project at the top of the pitch is Elder Punk. It's the idea of a continuing publication, somewhat like inspired by TBD, potentially could take on a life of its own. I love this quote I grabbed from you, Julian. Hopefully that's yours. Maybe it's somebody else's we should credit to. But anyway, that's there. So, and I was inspired heavily by, this is one of the last quotes I got. It literally just came out last year, but Mr. Kirby here had this idea that and I loved it, pre-product placements. So everything we've talked about in this world is about, bending the near future. In fact, I ended up titling my entire thesis as Impact Fiction, the Gentle Art of Bending the Near Future. Because our program was an applied program, so apply this in practice. And so I was trying to figure out a way to do that without completely offending Julian. But anyway, coming up with yet another name for something. But anyway, so this idea, I love this idea coming out of this, and then maybe there's a special edition in here, possibly. Julian had offered to publish something at one point, which is recorded in history somewhere. But anyway, this is the pitch around that. So it could have articles and stories, but instead of the thing about the TBD, and it's nothing wrong with it. I love it. I've kept it pristine, even though I've wanted to bend pages and mark them. Is that there's not any particular focus in it. It's very, I'd say, I was trying to differentiate between evocative and provocative. This is very provocative, and to the point where a couple of them I couldn't even figure out what the ad was. Like this one, I still can't figure out what this advertising. You can tell me later. But there's something to do with winter. Anyway, so targeting this group of our elders is in startup world, we invest in team, a large and growing market, and then the idea. So large and growing market, there are elder population, right? It's going to be a massive part of our future marketplace, and so I wanted to target that area. Plus, I feel like it's underserved. I went to quite a few investor forums where, especially in the Boston area, where they are very much in agreement. This is an underserved area. And I'll talk about another lady, Karen of thedaringtechnologist.com. She does a great job curating startups in this area and trying to advance the cause of doing more innovation in this world. But I also wanted to involve elders in this. I wanted to get people into more of a two-way street. We talk about communities and whatnot. I ended up calling it societies of impact fiction, but there's different expressions of this idea of societies of impact fiction. This could be one of them. So you get contributing articles or contributing guests to this, possibly train more and more people on how to do the work, and so forth. So in my case, in the doctorate and the thesis, in the middle of this, Julian actually read the very, very first installment. I think Drew's here, he read one of the very early drafts. So it's changed quite a bit based on that feedback all the way back then. But the idea in this story is that there's a widowed detective in this case, all inspired by things. You write things that you know. And through a laboratory at the Quay Institute or Key Institute nearby, he ends up with this device, which happens to be a stack in name, and stack is actually alluded to the full stack and all the rest of it. But it's an AI, and and it's there to serve, not to serve him necessarily, but to make his life better somehow. And the story evolved, and part of the work was trying to figure out what would happen if somebody was a widower living alone, trying to doing some contract work, has a family, grown family, and what are those needs going to be in that situation, and sort of putting pressure on it from different. One of them was just how do people take care of themselves. This comes from Dre. Dre's online here too. Dre loaned me, let me take out for a spin, GPT created for generating these kinds of design fictions. In this case, a catalog. And it took a lot of iterations to try and get what I wanted, which was like this idea. You can see the chef with their hands on their hip, ready to go to make food in the kitchen. Actually, there's some copy. Anyway, there's some copy that goes along with it. Chef de Cuisinart. Anyway, so the idea is in the middle of the story is to pop out an advertisement, literally for something that came up in the writing, which was how do you efficiently take care? How does that stack unit cook breakfast for the person? How do they get things organized? So nothing. So again, trying to stick to the mundane, but also trying to make it realistic. Dre and Jim coached me well on that, or trying to. I'm a new practitioner at this. I don't consider myself at all. So, but this one actually came out. I was very frustrated. It took about 30 iterations and this one just popped out on its own, like done. And I was like so impressed by it. And it's bulky. There is an evocation here where a designer will look at this like, oh my God, that thing's too bulky. It's not going to, proportions are wrong and all the rest of it. That's great. What I'm trying to do is evoke engagement from the story, the fiction, the actual scenario, and then write it as a story so people get drawn into the story and then pull out. So I'm fiddling with layers of reality here to try and tug people's brains along to that. There's a whole science behind that. Angus Bucker out at Project Narrative at Ohio State University, also a contributor into my knowledge around that. And so, sorry, yeah, go ahead. So in the story also there's a fall. Now, one of the things that was bothering me in my own studio practice prior was this idea of elders falling to the ground. And Christopher Plummer and Wayne Gretzky's dad, among the ones that just say suddenly they're vital. Yes, they're old, but there's no indication that just because you're old, you're going to fall down. But these falls are killing people like every 19 minutes. An elder dies of a fall that could have otherwise been prevented. It wasn't just that complete, or it wasn't a fate necessarily that they were going to encounter, but they fell. So in the story, I started taking real science. So the idea, I had tons of papers around how falls happen, how they work. And in the story, of course, the situation arises naturally, actually, of where I inserted this idea of a fall. So I could examine the mechanics of the fall inside the digestion of the story, we call it. And then I started pulling with the GBT from Dre to sort of come up with some concepts of what I called metamaterials for actively creating metamaterials for a soul that isn't powered, but due its structure and the way it's been printed and all the rest of it, it has the ability to adapt real time to all the science and mechanics. So there's science coming from the metamaterial side. I was corresponding with a particular individual who's really advanced in this area, and then the science of the fall itself and how's all. So I really love that stuff. This is where writing the science fiction and trying to pull out this different meta layer of reality and these advertisements really allowed me to fully express this stuff that would be too hard to put into an investor pitch.
Hey, Steve,
I was inspired by.
So
yeah.
That's been 10 minutes. So maybe you want to either ask what you're looking for help for, or something like that.
Wrap it up. Yeah, just wrap it up. Okay, well, and that's kind of just the idea. So there's a worksheet at the back of this where I would get people to kind of get involved or to otherwise engage. And it's also inspired TBD. You've got some sort of worksheet stuff with it. So, but this is the QR code gets people involved. And I'll come back to this stuff based on questions. So, but yeah, that's the general idea. Starts with this idea of an elder punk catalog, and so. Yeah, I'm really just looking for oblique, tangential ideas or reinforcement of, and or you can ask me questions about where I want to take Karen and her work with the startup of this chart. I do want to talk about it and how it fits into the world. But this is a collection of all the startups right now that need help with product market fit, and that's what it really comes down to me is tackling risk around lowering risk and increasing the valuation of this work. And I call anything you pull out of these shards because hey, I'm going to open up to the floor. Sorry to go over. I do suffer from clinical anxiety, so I try either talk a lot or I don't talk. So sorry. Go ahead. I see Marvelous Talking Machine is up.
Thanks for that, Steve. Very interesting. I was just thinking about the shoes and how elder people just move more and more slowly, and maybe a good framework to think about the future would be how we're talking about somatic, right, experience earlier. How do people move through space? And I think much more slowly, right? And I think if you just put that lens on, right, you can change the way you design shoes, the way you design doors, the way you design everything. I think it's actually pretty powerful, and it's not recognized in current product development, especially with shoes. Shoes are all about moving fast, being upright, right? What about shoes that are made for people that are mostly sitting down, right? Like, that kind of thing. That's it. That's all I want to say. Great presentation.
Or even putting them on, getting them on and off. And some people, what I discovered, they just get bigger and bigger shoes to make it easier to get their foot. And so they actually are setting up tripping hazards. They're setting up falls. It's inadvertently. So then the disability market and then the sports market, absolutely. But I like that idea of and that's the idea of a shard, is changing the lens so that people start to think about it. And I think what you just demonstrated to me is that it does evoke that thought process. Thank you. Dre's up, looks like next.
Yeah, I had my
Showing
virtual
someone come
hand
over
up.
and put themselves on would be cool.
My
Right?
virtual
Like you
elbow.
just tell your shoes to come put them on you, and you didn't have to do anything.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I think this guys
They crawl over to you and then put themselves on you and lace themselves up.
Yeah, get on there. As soon as you're not, as long as you don't get freaked out. But sorry, we'll go to Dre here.
That's some Back to the Future stuff right there. The lace self-lacing shoes. Well, first of all, I love the idea. The elder punk concept is cool. I like the name. I like the name behind it. And with having aging parents, I'm sure a lot of us are dealing with similar things. Falls are a big deal. Stability is a big deal. Mobility is a really big deal. So that affects your quality of life. One of my best friends has muscular dystrophy and is slowly losing their ability to walk. They went from walking with a cane to now being in a wheelchair. And we have a lot of discussions around the idea of she could use a lot of what you're talking about in here. Like falls are a big deal. Like it happens to her a lot, and they're bad. Like she hurts herself really bad. And when I look at elder punk, this is it's also a proxy for just mobility in general. And I'm sure Aaron on the call would also yeah, exactly. I know I'm reading your mail, man. I'm reading your mail. But small wheeled vehicles like skateboards are also a proxy for other small wheeled vehicles like wheelchairs and so on and so forth. So, but there is something really nice about the focus of elder. Like in the advertising world, it's like, just throw me one ping pong ball. Don't throw me a whole bunch of ping pong balls. But this idea that this could be bifurcated into just mobility in general. And there's so much that you can unpack here. And one really interesting thing is that a lot of innovations that are created for mobility and accessibility, like for instance, you probably own the oversized can opener from Umbra. Like that was designed as an oversized can opener for people with arthritis, for older people with arthritis. It turned out to be so comfortable and easy to use for people who didn't have mobility issues, people who didn't have arthritis, that it became the de facto design for can openers. And it was originally designed to tackle an accessibility issue. So there are probably a lot of inventions here in this world, in the diegesis of this experiment, that are really relevant to everyday people. Like like ramps into buildings for wheelchairs are UPS delivery people love that. It just makes business, it makes general day-to-day activities better. Anyways, this is good. So thanks for sharing this today.
Yeah, no, and thank you, Dre, again for the GPT help. And I was freaked out when I first started using that, but I couldn't stop myself using it. Okay, I'm just gonna go to the top of the list because I see three more. So Scott, Benjamin, and then Matisse. And I love the cigar. I want one. Right
Yeah,
now.
I just had just to make sure I understand what you're trying to do, because I think bringing some focus will help. So, are you trying to identify, for these companies, stay there.
Oh, sorry. Yeah. Got it. Okay, yeah. Right.
That list of companies, you led in with this concept of the pre-product placement, and then there's a whole thing in the chat about Crocs. And so
yeah.
Is your goal to have essentially a magazine or some kind of regular thing that is imagining futures that these companies either might be missing, or in the Dre's last example, like what's the affordances that already exist in the world that they might be overlooking? And if the answer is yes to any of those, I still encourage you to pair with an expert in each case and an actual person. Because I don't know how popular elder term is with that group. I would maybe also join the longevity crew over at the Foresight Institute. I mean, they're talking about long time from now, but there's a lot of language there that might also be interesting in terms of what they're discussing.
Absolutely, yeah. And I want to make sure we give credit here again to Karen at the gerontechnologist.com. Just gonna point that out again. That's her work. She's in Israel under the dome these days. But yeah, so yes to all of the above. And yes, I absolutely agreed. I think that's where the contributor idea, so some of these magazines, or even back in the day in the old sci-fi pulps and whatnot, you had some guest contributions, right? Guest people bringing in. So this idea of getting elders themselves involved. But most companies I've found in the investing and startup kind of incubation space, they lack product market fit. And one of the interesting things that came out of the thesis work on a sort of more philosophical level came all the way from Rittel and Weber 1973 paper where wicked problem was defined. So I had to go all the way back to that paper, and actually that paper became very foundational to my dissertation. But it was all about finding, like, you can't, if you understand the problem and break it down so well in context and the diegetic, and the diegesis allows me to prototype, and the diegetic prototyping and all the rest of it, then the solution emerges as you define the problem. This kind of weird paradox that they had identified back when I was in kindergarten, literally in 1973. So this idea then of working with each one of these people to try to help them figure that out or do that dive, which in a most generous way, in a lean, is what we call the lean startup, which is more about early experiments and contextual understanding and all the rest of it, and combining some of the design ideas. A lot of people just go and build tech right away. They have an idea. If it comes out, they sketch it up, they make a pitch, whatever, and they try to get it out there. So I've looked through a lot of these, and I'd say that probably 80% of them, we go with the Pareto rule, 80-20. So 20% maybe have a pretty good idea of their market, maybe not a perfect. 80% probably don't. And once product market fit is achieved, failure is not really going to happen for them.
But I think maybe, I suffer from what I'm perceiving. You're in a comfort zone now, what you're just saying. And I think the opportunity of what you're creating here is seeing where orthogonal or disruptive things are already also going on, like Dre's example, the can opener, the pizza cut, like all of those other things that already do a similar thing. I think because of the framing of your project, you are ripe for that is the thing that you're looking for, not the product market fit. It's like, hey, we are looking at all the things on the side while you're looking for product market fit to help
Absolutely.
you.
Yeah. Well, it helped them zero in on that near future product market fit, meaning they've got something now and it's interesting, but help them get there. And an existing corporation, an existing company that is trying to do some work, help them move forward where they're lost. They haven't, which is somewhat what NFL does now, looking, the bigger brands and whatnot that need to look in the future. So I guess like this is open. So I appreciate your comments, Scott. I'm glad this is recorded because I'm going to come back. So I do appreciate that. I'm just gonna let's go on to the next hand up. Benjamin, I think I called on you next.
Yeah. Hi. I guess similar to Scott, I was just wondering, like, can you give me like your elevator pitch for like what you're actually trying to do, just to make sure that I kind of like understand, like, because like I've seen a lot of these graphs, and obviously I think you have like a big lofty goal. I just want to make sure
Yeah.
that I understand what your goal actually is. Like, is it a product? Is it an agency? Like, yeah.
Well, it's funny you mentioned the word agency. That is the bottom line. Like for what this is all about, if that was to be the not even 30-second pitch, like the 10-second, is that this is a periodical in whatever form it takes, that is two-way. So it's involving elders, but it is about increasing elder agency. So things like falls just lead to loss of agency. And one of the things I discovered in the thesis work was we can actually not just maintain and try to kind of reduce the slope because there things drop off for people, but we can actually increase that. And a lot of it comes around helping people find a purpose. So one of the ideas behind the magazine itself would also be to drive people into a purpose, either trying to use their imaginations again, dust them off, evoke their imaginations. But I would say the bottom line of this, is anything and everything that leads to an increase in agency, either through participation or just inspiration.
So you're going to create a periodic publication that you're going to curate content for, that is going to be distributed and targeted towards elders with a series of short articles, and each article has a specific purpose of like inspiring creativity or gaining awareness about a potential something, whatever. And then based on the distribution, you're going to monetize through approaching up and coming startups to purchase advertising space inside your magazine that goes along with this kind of content.
Yeah, I mean, so that would be a very sort of current way to look at it. But no, I'm not really thinking about that idea of commercialization, which is good too, to kind of contrast. That would be kind of a more typical route. Most of them, they might be articles, but they'll be more so stories. So the idea behind this magazine is getting people to share their stories and anecdotes, not necessarily their nonfiction, but to take something out of their, and there's a whole litany of, basically overcomings or learnings or insights, or trying to get people to an illumination level and then sharing those stories. But inside those stories comes out some of the mundane stuff. So encouraging people to tell those stories or figure out a way to kind of get those anecdotes across. So we might ghostwrite them, meaning we can get some ideas in and then ghostwrite those for people and then illuminate them. So back in the Renaissance, and by the way, I'm actually bringing back Renaissance technology here. The novella of the Renaissance was precisely for this kind of surfacing. Used to talk about surfacing the groundwater, things below that. So and so then illuminating them with the design fictions. And so the idea is to kind of play with people's minds a little bit and evoke the companies, evoke brands to take a look at this work as well. So conventionally, yes, it could just be the straight subscription model, selling advertising, getting people to put this on their desk. As I say that out loud, it kind of bores me. It doesn't really give me the the feeling that
I'm a product
where I want-
manager, and I'm the worst at taking designers' awesome creativity and just
Yeah.
boiling it down to this terribly boring technical just set of processes. But I am very, it is very inspiring. I have an elder. My grandfather's actually still alive, has dementia, and is in a care facility and everything. So a lot of it really does resonate with me. I think it's a really interesting space. I was just really trying to figure out, what exactly it is you're trying to produce, and what the goal was.
Yeah.
But yeah,
I
anyway.
laugh because I'm on the other side of the table most of the time. Getting back to pitching and stuff, like I don't even have that really. I told Julian, like, that's the hard part, taking whatever, how many hundreds of pages, and then extracting out one thing from it. So this was my best effort today. So,
All right, well,
no, I
thank you for
appreciate
sharing,
it.
genuinely.
No, but even just in that, like just even in that contrast, I'm seeing kind of what is kind of boring me and where the excitement lies.
Awesome.
Okay. And
So
sorry,
we've got
Go ahead.
3 minutes. So I'm going to ask Mateus, would you mind yielding to Heather, who hasn't had a chance to ask a question? Is that all right? Cool. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mateus. That was very, very nice of you. I had a question sort of about or an idea for expanding where you want to go with this. I think it could be really inspiring to, not just write for the currently elderly, but write for those of us who are, kind of creeping into middle age, and give some inspiration and like future demand. Like I think of 2001: A Space Odyssey, like that was, decades ago, and Bell telephones had the foresight to product place video calls in that movie. And so I don't know, I'm thinking about like how can you get even like younger people excited about the idea of like aging well and aging healthily. So I don't know, just another thought.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think there is so absolutely a family idea. So some of the exploration was that there's families involved with elder, and there's a certain legacy there. So there's some people that want to publish their legacy in a hardbound cover, the most egomaniac, but getting getting younger people involved in those stories. My alma mater, their Queen's University in Ontario, has a project, and they find that there's also a passing along of values through these stories. So I think there is that intergenerational kind of story and values building, and then there's the high tech and the how do we age well and all the rest of it without getting into supplements and all the other stuff. I mean, it could be some fun ads and stuff. Like it was all, I mean, design fiction being behind this also just opens up the doors, right? It's kind of limitless in that way. And then, like I said, then the knock-on markets are disability markets, and so sports and all the rest of it. If we focus areas of mobility, but no, I appreciate that, Heather. Thanks for your comments.
Yeah,
I think there's definitely that multi-generational involvement there for sure, and contribution too. All right.
Cool. Thanks for that, Steve. Appreciate it.
Yeah.
Keep going.
Thanks for keeping me on track.
Keep going. Okay, so our final presentation is from Scott. Super excited to get it from.
Hey.
Hey.
There, can you see that? So I just signed up yesterday because I saw the previous two and thematically thought, this is timing wise, this is an idea that's been percolating a little bit. And then based on the theme of the previous two, I thought, it's enough. Push myself to share something even though it's early days. So the note, it's like the culmination of a series of very small projects that I've been doing that I'm calling Communal Heirlooms. Let's see if oops. Oi. Oh, that was weird. Just tried to go full screen and I lost it. There. Okay. Okay, so do you guys, there was this really amazing Long Now talk by the author of the book, The Optimist Telescope. I don't know if you guys read it, but she had this notion of this idea of these communal heirlooms. Think of like a forest, a river, these things that we like can communally steward into the future for future generations. And I thought, oh, what an amazing metaphor that could be for working with our neighbors. So the two previous projects feel very much like in this sort of mindset that you're trying to do work with people with this much longer, timeline. And so the aspect of it is how might we help people see their way into the future? So what are the things about the way in which we live now? I live in Barcelona. And what are the things about the way in which we live now that we want to preserve and or create future versions of to try to steward them into happening? And this will be through, I'll go into like the kind of formats. And I'm going very quickly, but these could be anything from, I literally had shade tree to a person who's a great listener, or an event that happens, these kinds of things that people would want to continue to steward into the future. And I have this offer, I don't know what to call it, that's called Possibility Hours, that I've been doing for a while with different organizations where there's a lot of tension in the community. And the notion of Possibility Hours is for this period of time, you will consider other possibilities of what could happen into the future. The kind of goal is this shift. I don't know how much, this is pretty potent thing in Barcelona where there's pretty effective protesting by the communities against things they don't like. I don't know how much you hear about it in the news, but they're very good at it, but it's also makes for a terrible relationship with the city. So there's this huge inefficiency rather than the two sides coming together to better, work towards shared futures. There's actually a project, Anna, you might like, that was, it's Salvem l'Alzina, which is Catalan for Save the Oak Tree. And there was a homeowner that was going to do a renovation, went through the proper channels to do the renovation. The next morning, two of these more than 100-year-old trees were getting cut down, and the neighbors just went berserk, flooded the garden, and essentially occupied it so the workers couldn't continue. And this thing went on for like a year. And now that, I mean, I don't know if it's a good or bad story, but the house is now public. Like the homeowners had to give up the house, et cetera, et cetera. It's like quite an ordeal. The place I'm at now is the white stuff is things that I'm currently doing. So signal scanning. I have a newsletter called Field Reports. There's this thing I'm doing now called, which you're all invited to participate in, called Superpower Swaps or Intercambio de Superpoderes, where it's like an hour interview format where I take you through 22 superpower cards. And it's largely to identify a trait that you have that just isn't the way in which the capitalist or work society tends to recognize. People recognize it in you, but it's not a thing that you can necessarily go to get a promotion or whatnot in the workplace. But we all value it in each other, but we're not good at talking about it. The yellow stuff is inviting the community into this whole process. There's a series of workshops to identify how to do signal scanning, what's coming along to change the future, identify what are these heirlooms, the various like sharing of what that is, and then guidelines for stewarding those things into the future. This is just a series of examples of like, I've done pieces of this. So this was me while working at IDEO, asking IDEO, what the fuck do you want to be as an organization? Because it was like the golden days were over, but a lot of people were hanging on to it. And you might recognize the Futures Cone there. So it's like there's this huge legacy, but what's coming that's going to impact the future? That was, I left IDEO ages ago, so it's a long time ago. These are the intercambios. I generate like a tarot card-esque image of your superpower after we have the conversation. The clips of these things are posted to the Field Report newsletter, which is here. Love for you guys. That's all free to subscribe to. I did a podcast where I was interviewing experts on the future of community, what it is to be a neighbor, to be a leader of a city, etc. You see, Julian was one of the early. That's your old, like, you don't use that photo anymore.
Yeah, it's like 20 years old.
Is it 20? Can't hide the gray anymore. I have the same problem. Then I've done these kind of communities, futures, workshops with different municipalities. Here it was doing bop poetry based on pairing two people who were adversaries in the community, getting them to talk about drivers of change, finding commonality, and while listening to them, live write poetry and then read it back to them and then make a book of poetry from that. This was a similar kind of workshop about the future of social housing in Barcelona, which is like a very heated, people are in favor of it until it shows up next to their house. This was a workshop at IDEO about just the skill building around design fictions, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So the form of these heirlooms could look like a ton of things. Could be things, people, processes, events, etc. And so I have a series of questions for you. Well, A, do you understand what I just talked about? I think the idea is fairly straightforward, but how would you start something like this? What kind of activities might you do first? What can you imagine making, preserving, whatnot? And do you want to participate? And I have here, if you're lacking ideas, like I have 28 different things that the intercambio is already one of them. But the other one I'm excited to do is this notion of the longest thread. Have you guys ever heard of this? It's like for 24 hours, you essentially sign up at essentially like a park bench for 20 minutes, and then another person comes, and whatever they bring a topic, you talk to them, and then you go and a new person comes. So there's this essentially a conversation at that bench for 24 hours. So I would love to do that kind of thing around the neighborhood as one of the projects. So that's it. If I stop share, it goes away. So I don't want to do that. I can't see you all when I'm sharing. Oops, where'd it go? Okay, let's try. Mateus.
Thanks. Great presentation and so many good projects. I guess for like, how would you start this? One thing missing from the presentation is what's your community and who are you organizing with? Right.
So
oh, sorry.
Well, it's happening now because I just bought a house. Well, I bought a house a year ago, and I live on a street that's like 4 blocks long. And when I'm on vacation now, but when I go back, the annual major festival is going on, and you volunteer to help do the decorations. And they learned what I do, and they're like, "Oh my God, we're so happy to have you on our street." So like that's like the easy starting. My neighborhood's very famous for tight community, so it seems like a place to start.
Right, because I'm thinking like 20, 15 years ago, I was doing some work in Barcelona with like urban planning stuff, and there was this, back then at least, there was an organization called En Medio. They were doing big protests against tourism, against gentrification, all that stuff, which are still very current, like important issues, still going.
Yeah.
And like their driving force, they had a certain idea, but everything that they did was sprung out of something that and perceived need, and then they had a bunch of designers, activists, media jammers, blah blah, did stuff around that, and that got a lot of traction, right? So so if you have a street and you have a good community, I would start by, okay, out of your 28 or how many different ideas there was, like which have most traction in the community, and build on that. Because I mean, one, you don't burn out as much when you have other people who are really engaged. Two, you have a natural audience for the stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah, I guess that
the
would
other
be...
thing I should probably mention to you guys, because it's pretty novel, is there is a participatory budgeting process in my city, in my neighborhood. So every quarter, I forget how often it is, you can propose projects to be considered to get budget in the next, I don't remember how far in the future. I'm thinking this project would be a way to like upskill people, so whatever they do propose would be more better prepared to get that budgeting. Marvelous Talking Machines, Sandor. You didn't change your name.
Yeah, I should change my name to Marvelous Talking Machine.
You could just go with
I have
it.
to renew my driver's license, so might as well.
What a pain.
Yeah, that won't set off any alarms. Yeah, I remember I just happened. Communal Heirlooms immediately like was difficult for me to hear because I felt they were like somehow the same. And I started thinking about it, and there are things we hold in common, right? But I thought of like lineage more than communal, even though communal is sort of a set inside a set. And so I started thinking about like a lineage, like what stays after we go, right?
Yeah.
And this might be like the easiest future speculation because in this case, almost the future is like the past, right? So maybe that's the question, like what stays after we go, right? And started thinking about like communal after things, right?
Nice.
So like that's where I landed. So it was just more of a word game I was playing in my head. But this idea of lineage, after things, and what stays after we go. It sort of reminds me of the Jeff Bezos thing. Like what you should be thinking about is what's going to stay the same, not so much what's going to change if you want to come up with a good business, right?
Yeah.
And
that's helpful. I mean, yeah, sorry, go ahead.
No, you please.
No, I mean, it reminded me of what Anna was doing with hers. Like you're going to shift, ideally, in after this experience, you will be aware of the timeline of a tree, like what even 100 years even is. We're bad at that. So I think connecting to those is cool. So maybe heirloom is wrong. It could be. I'm not beholden to any.
I'm certainly
trend.
not saying that.
Yeah.
But just
well,
this
not
kind of wordplay that's going on in my head.
Yeah, appreciate that.
And the idea of seeds, of course, heirloom seeds. These are actually critical, very important future thoughts that we really need to think about. But the idea of food heirlooms, tomatoes, et cetera, trees. Et cetera. If we think about it for just a second, we realize how bad it is to hurt the environment. Because these after things will disappear, and that's what's held in community. So it's almost like the community of what stays the same, like of what persists. So anyway, that's where I'm at, and I thought that would maybe be a way to think about lineage, as I mentioned. That's all.
Thanks. Yeah. Heather.
Hey, great presentation. I loved this. I thought it was really fun. Also kind of on the wordplay thing, heirlooms, I think of as you kind of mentioned in the intro, something that is cared for by a person. And so, I don't know, I think as you work out how one would designate an heirloom in your community, I think there might be a real like ceremonial or like active human element to the designation, as opposed to like something like a plaque or whatever that would then sort of like shoot it off into the artifact realm, right? So just thinking about how to like preserve that distinction between artifact and heirloom.
It's funny, there are a lot of plaques in the neighborhood, which I love because a poet was responsible for naming the streets of Barcelona. So you see, this person was the composer, blah, 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 or in this building, was born so and so. So like there is an interesting culture of doing that, but I like reconsidering how those things come up or are shared is great.
This was fantastic. I did a project called Art Plus Fact, but we were pronouncing it artifact. And
Yeah.
There were people who were the artifacts instead of objects.
Yeah.
So when we did our podcast, we would ask the person to bring essentially an heirloom with them, an object that was like a touchstone or lodestone type thing with them, and they would talk about it and use it to remember certain things that happened. One of the ways you might consider starting, since you've got your community and you've got your geographic boundaries, we were thinking about time scale and a specific shift, and then playing with things that were created at a specific starting point, things that had disappeared to where we are right now, and then what would we like to achieve in this same time scale on the other side.
Okay.
So you might think of it that way, especially since it feels like Barcelona itself is really aware of itself.
Oh my God.
And
Very.
that people actively are working towards controlling the future, or at least mitigating outcomes from
100%.
Yeah.
Yeah, Franco still haunts here and there. So, and it's not long ago, just the 70s.
Right, exactly.
So that's
we
not
at
long.
1973.
Yeah.
It's a really interesting year. The floppy disk gets created.
Oh, that's so cool.
The avocado green and that weird orange comes about. So the future as an architectural concept starts showing up in movies and films. So there's a specific rounded edges set design thing that starts happening everywhere.
Yeah.
And then there's the crock pot. So I have like a whole dance piece with crock pot as a time traveling device. So what are some of the things that were happening in Barcelona, maybe around that preceded Franco or happened immediately following, whose echo is still forcing
the
certain
Olympics
behaviors?
Yeah. They're pretty clear, so it's like it's easy. Yeah, that's cool. Super helpful. Shreya.
Hello, I loved the
Hi.
whole presentation, the idea of it. I was also like thinking on the lines of whenever a community and communal word comes to my head, I think of activities that communities do together, whether it's festivals or any event that comes up, some of the rituals they have to, whether it's decorating their homes or, doing a certain activity. And that is usually passed down to the next generation, but it's also coming from like the past, like that's what they have seen to do. And I was thinking how we can weave that into this. Like I know we spoke about artifacts, like tangible things, but non-tangible things of the community that we do together would be fun to think about.
It was one of the inspirations actually was when I moved here was learning these new rhythms of life that at 6 o'clock on Saturday, it's this, on Sunday, it's this day, on Saturday, it's that. They're very clear. Well, when you're there for a longer period of time. So that's definitely a thing I want people to be more aware of preserving and or inventing ones that like a little like what Anna's describing is like think back X amount of time and now look forward, or even what Sandor is saying, what's the thing that we want to persist? What might we need to change to enable it to persist? This thing that's coming up in August is over 100-year-old annual festival. So there's really cool, my house is 150 years old or something. So like, it's a pretty cool place it's weird because like there's a lot of stuff already saved, but I think it's a moment where people are worried about, with the homogenization of cities, et cetera, it's happening. it's showing up. So it's a good time to try to start this.
Yeah. Like one of the questions could be, what would people in the future do? As like you mentioned, they have certain days. So one of the things we can like, in the participatory workshop, think about what is it, how will their day in the life be on a particular day, and what would they do as a community together?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, day in the life's a great exercise. I can't. It's annoying. Can you see the chat when you're sharing your screen? It's annoying. Zoom, like the Chrome takes over everything. I'm gonna turn off my share. I would love for you guys to do sign up for the intercambios, or just to practice them. I don't know where you are in your life, but I have found for people who, I think it was Steve, you're like third, what was the phrase? Third purpose? No, third third wave? No.
Third act.
Third act. I feel like I'm in my mid 50s now. So like that resonated. I'm like, yep, this is potentially a legacy project I'm about to start on. So I found people who are at that space, or have just finished school, changing career, quit a job, blah, blah, blah. The intercambio is pretty good reminder of what's amazing about you.
I think, yeah, that's very interesting. Yeah.
How do we sign up?
Kind of what,
Yeah, where do we sign up?
Yeah, I'm just, hold on.
you're gonna like, okay.
I'm
You're
trying
building
to.
the form right now.
No, that exists.
That's
Oh,
how
the
raw
form,
this
the
is.
form to do it? No. Oh shit, I don't have that. Yes, I do. What am I saying? Hold on a minute. I have a Calendly. If anyone knows something, I've been trying something called You Can Book Me. Seems okay, but if you guys have better scheduling things, let me know.
Calendly works for me, but it's paid, I'm pretty sure.
Yeah, the free one's pretty limited.
Yeah.
Google
they're all
Calendar
pretty.
has it. Google Calendar has it built in now.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, I moved off of Calendly, and you can generate a book a meeting with me type of link right in Google Calendar, and you can send it to people.
Awesome. Okay. Thank you.
Does it allow you to have a calendar or types of bookings, or do you?
Yeah, that's the thing I really want. I want a 15, a 30, and an 1 hour version.
That I don't know, but I'll take a peek right now and see if.
Yeah, StrengthsFinder's similar. The superpowers deck I've modified was one from, I don't know if you guys know who Stone Yamashita is, or I don't know if they still exist. They were part of like IDEO's ecosystem. It was a very corporate leadership deck. And after all the community work I've done, I'm like, there's a version of this for like community leaders. So I've rewritten them all. There's a Spanish version. So it's from there. There's a lot of these. Oh yeah, your kitchen. There's this video of a guy who I don't think he can walk, but he has like this essentially a seat that comes down, and he sits. He's a famous chef, but it allows him to move in all directions in his kitchen. I don't know if you've seen that video, Steve.
I've seen that.
Yeah,
I've seen that. It's awesome.
I'm like, that's the future.
Yeah.
Yeah, I want that in my kitchen. I want it in my entire house.
The infrastructure must be pretty heavy, though.
It's not that bad. So okay, so as long as you have, I've deconstructed
rabbit hole coming.
Yeah, well, I had this conversation with my friend who's in a wheelchair, and if you have proper ceiling joists, you can anchor this properly. It's a really, really simple curved aluminum extrusion with like a bearing wheel thing that attaches in there. and it's really no different than I don't know if you've seen the bed lift. It's a similar rail in the ceiling. They usually put it by a bed, and they'll take somebody out of a chair and into a harness, and it raises them up and moves them onto the bed. It's very simple, very similar to that. So it wouldn't really require that much. And humans aren't that heavy considering we stomp on floors all day long. So the ceiling can completely take our weight.
Yeah, but what about
Yeah,
that one guy who fell through the ceiling, Dre, when we were at your
Oh, that's true. That's true. Yeah, there's no helping that guy.
If you
Yeah,
go
right.
between the joists, you're finished. I'm not gonna save you.
Julian and I were in a meeting where a construction worker on the floor above in the co-working facility that I was at literally came crashing through the ceiling like
apologize. He apologized.
Yeah, he
He's like, "I'm
apologized.
sorry.
I don't know if he was apologizing because he came down like a reckless Santa Claus and he didn't have a gift for us, but like his presence was our gift, and it was all captured. Well, it was Julian and I's reactions were captured on the Zoom. We were in office hours when it happened, so it was beautiful. It was a beautiful moment.
It was beautiful.
It's a rare one.
Oh, there's the newsletter. Okay, possibility hours. I think I'm subscribed. I'll resubscribe.
You are. I think you're one of the early. All this stuff side project now, but if in later office hours, I've been such a consultant for such a long time. I'm like, when Anna was like, I have this membership, I'm like, how'd you do that? So I'm trying to shift everything to be the main project.
A lot of crying.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I know the mechanisms of like find things that represent value, blah, 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 blah. But I know how to do that in the business context. But like going to my neighbor and being like, hey, do you want to be a member of this thing? I mean, I can, but it's new.
Andrew Yang, big, someone to listen to from the AI world. He talks about how when he's working on ideas, he likes to go to hotel lobbies and just kind of politely just talk to people. Like, what do you think? Hey, I'm working on this thing here. What do you think?
Yeah.
And he says how hard it was. It's hard to do, but you just got to do it. You do it politely. You do it with respect.
Yeah.
There's people walking through that lobby all the time. It's just like easy user feedback.
I mean, I'm pretty lucky. Like almost, do you guys say caddy corner? Across the street on the corner is the clubhouse of the neighborhood association for my street. And so there's like, it's easy pickings to like, and this, I like to say the city's set up to socialize. So if you run into someone within, I don't know, 10 meters is somewhere to sit down and like talk. So I just need to start. Today was the first time I've ever verbally described this project. The thing I shared with you was from a written deck for a big exhibit thing that was here 2 years ago. So it was good practice.
You're a business,
I'm like
right? Like you have
out.
places to collaborate. People like expect to be able to sit and talk. It's kind of designed for that. I love that. That's
Yeah,
just
it's a big
cats,
reason
I guess. A
I
lot of
moved
cats.
away from San Francisco to there because it's just like it's everywhere.
Yeah. Or you could just
How are
even
things
set up
there?
shop. Just let me, I
Sorry,
was gonna say, you just set up shop with your laptop, or somebody sits near you and say, "Hey, can you just have a look at this kind of thing?" So you're kind of there, set up, doing whatever, and then you just sort of share it. Yeah, just engage people. Sorry, go ahead, Jim.
I will do more than that. I mean, I won't bring a laptop, but I for sure will set up shop just in front of my house. Literally, my house is on the street. Like, I go out the door, you're on the street. Like, there's an area with bollards separating you from traffic. No, there's not. You could get hit by a car. So I'd need to put some defensive planters, but I could sit out in front of my street with some like Lucy invitation, peanuts, like the
Burn of
doctor is in.
coffee.
And
The doctor's
yeah.
in. Yeah, I was gonna say the doctor's in.
Okay, I'm gonna
Lemonade.
When I'm back in August, that will be fine. Okay, I'll start thinking of things like that because I'm new in the block. So yeah,
He'll be the peculiar guy, the El Gringo.
well, they already know. Well, they know that my partner's Spanish, so that's already like a little bit. They're like, okay, he's not one of these guys making the city more expensive.
Yeah, I was going to ask you about that. What's the vibe in Barcelona in particular? Because you hear that, you know, it's tricky to be a tourist there.
Yeah, people keep asking because the like travel writers or journalists are pretty lazy and they really latched onto that squirt gun story where people were squirting tourists with water. And that happened, I can't think of, okay, Julian, you're in LA, so like say I can't even think like what's the most touristy part of your neighborhood where it's just you avoid it because there's just only tourists now.
Yeah, the boardwalk, the Venice
The
Beach
boardwalk, you were just there. Psh, psh, psh. Like it's pretty innocent. Maybe they were like kind of menacing. Like
Yeah, I don't know, but California is a very well-armed state. You want to be careful about who you might be aggravating.
yeah. Yeah, Venice might not be the best. Santa Monica might be better. But so I mean there's a well, whatever, it's a like long topic, but housing is the main problem. As much as it's a social democracy, there's been a big problem because it was one of the negatives of Airbnb. So like the whole idea that you're disaggregating unused assets, what happens when people are creating assets for that business model? What does it do to all the other ones? So suddenly there was a lot of the available housing was now occupied, if you will, by Airbnb or like short-term rentals, and therefore not available. And then also it drove rent like super steep in the last 5 years, just went bonkers. Well, it depends on your perspective. For me, in 5 years, but just some perspective, like annual salary used to be $1,000 a month, and rent is now 12 or more. Sorry, 1,200 a month. So like you can't live there.
I'm in a meeting.
That's okay. We can, visitors. It's the new person falling through the roof. I mean, isn't Venice having its own? Are you still in Venice, Julian?
Yeah.
It must be critical situation there, no? It's after Google and everybody else moved in.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, it is. Since I've been there, about 20 years, definitely tell that I mean, the people that it's like you're a tourist, either literally, which is totally fine. I'm not against tourism, but also just people you kind of like. Yeah, you could tell they're there because of the allure, I guess, or the imprimatur of being based in Venice for whatever reason. It's like, I don't know, everything from the cars they drive and that kind of stuff. But to a certain degree, I just try to be like, well, okay, shit changes. The place that I used to go to, it was called French Market Cafe, it was very French and very kind of weird there. But you went there because you knew the owner, and now it's like, Australians, which I'm no problem with Australians, but it was Australians living there who decided to set up a cafe, which is fine. There's no problem with that. And then like one Saturday a month, I think you can tell because you step outside, it's like, oh, it's this Saturday, and my street is completely just packed with cars parked, and a bunch of absolutely fine 20 somethings or whatever in bathing suits going to this thing because they're gonna have a DJ. They're gonna have an inflatable pool, and and you hear.
Are you still in Angela's place?
Yeah, still, no, sorry, over just a couple blocks over and over on Woodlawn.
Okay.
was
Fun
over there.
fact, everyone, we were neighbors.
Ah.
Yeah. So it's changed, you know, I'm not aggravated by it, but it is a little bit crazy, like just not knowing, just like on the rent side, like a neighbor of mine rents out I would say kind of middling 1 bedroom.
Mhm.
If that like I've never been in it, but you know, and he's a nice guy and everything. And I was just like, what are you renting it for? And it's like something nuts. It's like
4,000.
I want to say it's like $3,200 a month.
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
mean, to me, that's just absolutely mental.
It's
I mean,
ridiculous.
that's
Yeah.
like twice my mortgage. It's
Yeah.
like, what?
Yeah.
That's crazy.
Yeah.
It's crazy.
Just pre-pandemic, the startup I was working at had their office in one of the old Snapchat offices. It was down on Market Street, and I could literally see the skate park from my desk. It was great. And it was really weird being down there every day. And like we chose to live in Mar Vista, which is just like one neighborhood inland, because you know you just cross Lincoln, which is like the main kind of dividing street, and all of a sudden the price goes down half because no tourist wants to Airbnb on the other side of a major street. And so like, you know, we couldn't, you know, you can't afford to work and live in the same spot when your company chooses to like, you know, set up shop in those super desirable areas. But yeah, it was crazy because like when I first got, you know, I've only been in LA for, you know, 10, 15 years. So I'm not like an old timer, but like when we first got here, Venice still had that like local feel to it. And definitely in the last like, especially post pandemic, like anything that was like potentially just local was replaced with tourist, young focused activities, very like catering towards that crowd. So it's sad to see a lot of them. There's a few places that are like, you know, really old staples that were busy enough and they're still around. But yeah, pretty much everything's turned over. It's brand new down there.
I love the approach that we can't really get away from, which is everyone who was here before me is an old timer. Everyone after me is just a gentrifying piece of shit. You know, but me, no, I still, you know, I still barely squeezed in the good guys.
I mean, it does depend on your, I mean, yes and no. It very depends on what your contribution is in the time you live there. Like you can only extract, and there are those people, right? They just move there to have the thing and give nothing back.
That was very much on my mind when I moved to Venice, very much to the point where it was like I was like looking around for things that I could do, and that's what led to you know, kind of accidentally, but it kind of worked out, just becoming part of the kind of skateboarding community. So Benjamin, when you were talking about the skate park there, that had just opened around the time that I moved in. And so I just went there and I just started shooting, you know, just taking pictures. And then, you know, you become friends with people. They're like, ooh, shoot me over here and that kind of stuff. And then become part of the little, you know, it's not even an NGO. It's just like a bunch of people who took it upon themselves to take care of the park. You know, I never did this, but there was one guy who's like every morning, like a ritual, he'd come and muck it out from the evenings, you know, damp or the people sleeping in it. You guys got to go. And in that way, it felt like more contributory, I guess, than just kind of hanging out and upping the price of a morning coffee or something like that. But I think if you, I'd like to what Scott's point, if you bring something to it with a sense of humility and acceptance and just realizing like I could be part of the problem, but let me work actively on not being part of the problem, but contributing.
Yeah. It's part of
You
why I
definitely get
think
people who just
Uber,
like, yeah, it's like,
I think it's why Uber originally failed in Barcelona and why Airbnb is now going to be regulated out. I don't know if you guys know, like all licenses, you cannot renew you need a license to be on Airbnb in Barcelona. And if you have one, when it expires, you cannot renew it. So I think within a year or two, there will be no more. And it's because those businesses didn't do anything to contribute to the context of Barcelona. All money went somewhere else. The businesses that thrive, even if they're old money, I love the nod in my birth year. Essentially, it's like a classist comment, but if your business gives back, like there's a certain prosperity you can have that's fine, but then after that, if you are not doing anything to contribute to everyone else, then people then start resisting your prosperity. It's an interesting dynamic to watch.
And also in Barcelona, you have so much strong, and I mean, since Uber is so strongly anti-union, right, anti-workers' right, and it's a gig economy, so you have all that political history as well from Barcelona as a syndicalist city and so on.
Yes. Yeah, I mean, and there's oh my God, what's the there's like a long-held anarchy community, which seems like a strange way to put it, but that philosophy has been around for almost forever. So it's still there. It still shows up in different political parties in different ways, without seeming fringe. It seems like it's just another alternative.
I'm just curious about the Airbnb case. I don't have a lot of knowledge on it, but my assumption would be like even if people who are coming in and staying in the Airbnb, they would be contributing to the businesses around, even if they're mom and pop stores, like the local stores, they would be contributing to the economy of that space.
Yeah, it's slightly complicated. So generally, yes. That tourist is less frowned upon because you can regulate it so they stay longer, and then for sure what you're saying happens. And I think that's not in place yet, but I think that's going to be the next step. The bigger problem is people are like it's investment, venture capital that's creating apartments only for Airbnb. Or when things turn over, then that apartment that was a family or whatever then becomes Airbnb apartment in a neighborhood where there is no hotel or whatever. So there's a fight right now because there's a bazillion hotels. There was literally the leaders of the Spanish Airbnb met with city leaders, and it was a pretty hilarious, funny in the paper. You know, the city leaders they're both like "fuck you" essentially, and they it was like the Airbnb guys totally misunderstood the argument against their business model because they put out a thought piece afterwards trying to defend their what they were doing. And it's like it's the argument that I think they make a lot, which is they redistribute where the tourists are within a city. I don't know, you see this happening in Copenhagen and Amsterdam because Copenhagen's so small. They're definitely trying to get more and more people to the other areas than just that little part of the port. And so that was kind of their argument. It's like, but those places are where the apartments are having shortages. So it'd be better if a small hotel was built in that neighborhood, not you taking up property.
There's a really good interview with the CEO of like the Hilton, I think it was the Hilton, and where he talks about Airbnb, and he was basically like, yeah, when they first came out, it was like we were really worried about the hotel industry being disrupted because it was a different experience. It was like sharing a couch, sharing a home, like getting involved in the local community and everything. But as soon as it was like the tipped and people preferred whole house stays and like they didn't want to be on someone's couch, they didn't want to be, you know, in someone's spare bedroom or whatever, like, oh, like this is just like hotels with another name, like this is the same business model, we can compete against this all day long, it's just the same thing. And at the end of the day, like literally like these VCs are basically building their own hotel infrastructure inside of residential areas. And the problem is that like the city, the planning, the people living, like it's not set up to be like, it's not set up to have a business run in this residential area, right? And it's like there's a lot of work that goes into having like the density of people around a hotel and all that kind of stuff, and like that's the problem, the true problem. Anyway, so it's a fascinating take from the hotel industry that kind of like reframes the whole Airbnb thing. But yeah, it's not necessarily about like tourists are gonna go where they're gonna go. And it's like, okay, like if there's a demand for tourism, like let's build more hotels, not just let people stay at these like houses kind of thing. Anyway.
And I think the big difference also, like if you like 20 years ago when couch surfing became big, when like social media, right? So as you say, Benjamin, I mean, people, you can keep someone on your couch, that's fine. But as soon as a whole apartment goes, or even rooms in apartments, it's not just the value extraction, right? So you have perhaps rent controlled apartments being rented out. So whoever is renting out doesn't pay for upkeep. The guests don't care as much about it, blah, blah, blah. But the bigger part, and what I've seen both in Barcelona and recently we went to Athens, is that it fractions communities a lot. If you have a bunch of 20 apartments in one block and suddenly 10 of those are gone, that's 10 neighbors you're never going to talk to. You might have good conversations and the tourists might add to your local economy by shopping, but the renting value goes out and all of the community disappears immediately. So that has been like a big argument against Airbnb models that I've seen.
That's the phenomenon you're describing, Mateus, is super apparent in my neighborhood because someone regularly tags tourists go home on those buildings. Like they're paying attention to when the house changes to that. So then I think they literally have a map somewhere of who. So in my case, when my house was getting renovated, we were a little nervous about that. But I think because we became friends with the store owner next to us and some of the other people, the word on the street was, because we already live in that neighborhood, they were like, no, it's like these people moving in. It's not going to be whatever. So our house was never tagged.
We saw that targeted stuff in Athens as well. We stayed in the anarchist activist quarters, and it's like heavy graffiti, especially in places which we like lock boxes for keys and stuff like that. So we saw anti-tourism, anti-B&B, and we got recommendations also: don't stay in the Airbnb because you're going to get targeted. So it's really militant in the sense that it's organized.
Very. There's a creepy red dot thing that showed up around. We don't know still what it was about. We still don't know. Just like a dot on different buildings.
At least it's not it's not like the spot on Treasure Island. The spot frozen rain.
Yeah.
Should we wrap?
I gotta jump here too, but it's been great. Thanks everybody.
Yeah.
Thanks everyone.
Thank you. Especially thank you, Julian.
Have a great weekend, everyone.
You too.
Yeah.
Bye.
Cheers.
Take care, folks. Stay cool.
Thanks, you guys.